I think the one thing that I tell women all the time is, you got to let those fears, put them aside because you can do it. And I think a lot of women are recognizing that this is a new segment that's going to have generations of impact. And I think a lot of women, when they come into it, they're like, okay, well, can I do this alone? And what if I want to travel? What if I do end up in a different part of my life where I have a partner or I have kids? And how does this sort of play into it?
Welcome to Momentum in Real Estate, your guide to success in the dynamic world of real estate. I'm Cory.
And I'm Kristin James. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro, we're here to help you reach new heights.
Success in real estate comes from learning, growing, and serving others.
Join us as we dive into strategies for lead generation, marketing, market trends, and client relationships.
Get ready to ignite your momentum and achieve your goals in real estate.
Let's dive in and unlock your full potential.
This is Momentum in Real Estate.
Today's guest is Nitasha Kassam, a lifelong Chicagoan whose roots, values, and passion for helping others make her a truly standout real estate advocate. Growing up in a Pakistani household shaped her into someone who leads with compassion, service, and dedication, qualities reflected in her countless hours of volunteering and her fierce advocacy for clients. Since joining her current team in 2017, Natasha's become an invaluable part of her brokerage, known for her outstanding customer care, deep neighborhood knowledge, and market insight. Nitasha brings warmth, guidance, and professionalism to every client, backed by the powerful tools of one of Chicagoland's top brokerages. With her, you're not just navigating the market, you're gaining a trusted partner who genuinely wants her clients to succeed. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Oh my God. That was an amazing intro. Thank you so much for that, Kristin and Cory.
Yay, we're so excited to have you. So share with us your real estate story and how you got where you're at today.
Okay, so I'm going to take you guys back a little ways back in time because my journey started a little bit earlier than most people. I was 12 years old. My parents were buying their first house and they had a realtor, but we were often going on showings alone, doing a lot of things on our own. I guess this was like 1999, 2000, so different times. And we had gone to go look at a house and it was okay. And we walked outside. I saw a house a few doors down and I said to my parents, I want that house. And they were just like, I don't think that house is for sale. Well, an elderly couple was walking out. I ran over to them, introduced myself, and I was like, hi, I love your house. Will you sell it to me and my parents? And they were like looking at me like, who is this child? And then said, you know what? Yeah, actually, we would be interested in that. So it ended up being where, we talked to them directly. We got our realtor involved. I think it was a dual agency sort of situation, but we got the house, and it was amazing. Fast forward years later, my parents are now looking to sell the house and I'm interviewing realtors. And I just thought to myself, why not me? So it was kind of like this thought that was always in my head. I let it be. I did nothing with that. And then eventually, in 2017, I was laid off. I was 29 years old. I'd been working since I was 16. So I just took a few months off before I decided to make any moves. And I was like, okay, real estate's back in my mind again. It's always been there. I reached out and I didn't know any realtors at the time. So I reached out to people on my LinkedIn network. A colleague of mine introduced me to her friend, Crystal, who is our team lead. And I spoke to her. And Crystal was so honest and transparent with everything in the industry, which I thought was so refreshing because a few of the other people I had talked to weren't as open, right? And her and I clicked right away. And she was like, why don't you come on and be my assistant? And I said to her, I can, but if I want to do real estate, my ultimate goal is to become a realtor. So it'll be like a short-term gig. And she was like managing expectations that taking the exam, taking the courses, it can take some time. 1 month later, I was licensed, ready to go, and we started the team. So that's kind of how I started. Now our team is just as old as I am, I guess. We're 8.5 years in. Crystal's been doing real estate as a solo agent for a very long time. But it was sort of the groundwork of all this was really setting that foundation of that transparency and honesty that we had. And we kind of took that and made that into a culture in our team. And our team is very interesting because we operate as solo individuals. We get all of our sales volumes and we do our own transactions. Everything is counted individually. So if we ever want to leave, it comes with you. But at the same time, we're very collaborative and we have very strategic approaches on marketing and sales strategy, talking to our clients, and that kind of encompasses it and makes it really powerful for us.
That's awesome and really kind of a unique model among, like the whole team dynamic. And every brokerage, every, firm kind of organizes in whatever way they see fit, but that's a really unique way of being organized. And I love that. For you as an agent, it seems like a really good system for you to be operating in, given how driven and motivated you are. So I love that. One of the things I would love to dive into is Cory and I represent kind of different demographics. She's married with kids. I'm a single woman. We've both bought property. I'd love for you to talk about your work with single women in your market and kind of what makes them unique. What are some unique challenges or fears that you have to help them overcome, and what that experience has been like?
Yeah, I think for me, just every aspect of my life, I'm always thinking, what can I do to make this better for women? It is always, for some reason, just the way society is, 10 steps harder for us to do everything. And so when it comes to women, single women, buying homes and coming into home ownership, it's so interesting because if you look at the stats, right now, single women are making up 20 to 21% of the market, whereas single men are only doing 8 to 9%. And when you look at first time home buyers, that's not just a niche market. That is a driving market force. And when we look at the historical context of all this, women were not able to own property until 1974. That's when we were able to get our own credit, not need a co-signer or a husband. Even if we had the income, we weren't able to. Now we can. And in just over 50 years, we are now a really big part of the real estate world. And so I think the one thing that I tell women all the time is, you got to let those fears, put them aside because you can do it. And I think a lot of women are recognizing that this is a new segment that's going to have generations of impact. And I think a lot of women, when they come into it, they're like, okay, well, can I do this alone? And what if I want to travel? What if I do end up in a different part of my life where I have a partner or I have kids? And how does this sort of play into it? And so my job really, when I come into it, especially with the women here in Chicago, is really educating them on, we live in a very big and diverse city. And so even if life changes, this is your first step into building your generational wealth, right? This home does not need to be the end all be all. This home is for you as a stepping stone. You're going to pay rent anyway. You might as well pay and build your own equity. And eventually, let's find a property that you can rent out. And then when you maybe are moving or traveling, you have that option. If you are getting married, then you have some equity and you guys can keep that home or sell it to buy something together. But really kind of that first sort of conversation piece of how are you now going to use your financial freedom to make sure that you have long-term wealth.
I could just listen to you talk all day long, just so
Oh
you
my God,
know.
that's so sweet.
I'm like, you're such a good storyteller. I'm so excited. So tell us, like, what is your sphere made of? Like, or not sphere, what is your business made of? Like, who are your clients? How are you finding your leads? That sort of thing.
Yeah. When I first started, honestly, it was just sphere of influence and word of mouth. And what I first learned, like early on, and Crystal told me this, and then it's something that I've just taken with me, is like you got to put yourself out there and you got to ask for the business, right? So the very first thing was go on my social media. Who do I know? Instagram, Facebook, and just let people know I was doing real estate. And that's honestly where a lot of my business, knock on wood, has come from. I mentioned that when I was looking for a way to get into real estate, I didn't know a lot of realtors. Well, it turns out a lot of my people in my sphere didn't know a lot of realtors. And they were also in that point in their life where they were like, okay, we are young professionals. Do we want to live at home? Do we want to rent? Do we want to buy a home? And so when I first started off, all of my business was coming from direct people that I knew, and it was rentals. I did rentals for a whole year before I even got a sale. And it was a grind. It's not like you're earning $100,000. You're making maybe like 20K, and you're getting by. And that sphere has continued with me because now those renters have gone into first-time home ownership. They've gone into upgrades. They have family who they're like, okay, my parents want to sell their house, or my cousin needs a place. So that's come very in handy to me. That's a great sort of lead generation. I think the other source of where my leads come from is through sort of our team pool, right? When I started with Crystal, she started developing a website for us, and we get a lot of leads through our website. We have different pages that are built out. And if you go and look for me, you'll see that I'm marketing exactly what the group I'm trying to appeal to, right? First time home buyers, people upgrading, you're a woman, or you speak Hindi and Urdu. I'm fluent in another language, and I've made that a part of my marketing. And so when people go and Google me or look on my website, they'll be, oh, we need someone who speaks our language, who understands our culture. And then they'll automatically sort of reach out, through our landing page. And I've been recently, over the last year, been lucky enough to get a few leads just directly off social media. Like, people are like, oh, we were looking for this hashtag and you popped up, and I thought that was great. So it's kind of expanding. I think it's been really great to have my sphere, the leads that come through our team page. And we do, like, our team does partner with Zillow Flex, which is really nice. So depending on the zip code, if I have a lot of sales in there, I will get that lead, and then it's up to me to potentially close it. So that works really nicely. But a lot of it is sphere of influence, and then them passing it on and just kind of being very active and letting people know, hey, I'm still doing this. If they don't see you posting about it, they're going to forget you're the realtor, And it's interesting because one of the things I learned was, like, even with people who trust me and they're like good friends and family, they may not in the beginning have thought of using me as their realtor, because this is a investment that they're making, right? Whether you're buying or you're selling, it's with lots of money and there's no refunds. And so it took some time to sort of earn that trust. And it was very much through consistency and just continuously talking about it, learning about it, and then becoming reliable, where they're like, hey, we can trust Nitasha, we can trust the Crystal Strand team, and we're going to not only use her, but we're going to refer her out to everybody else.
I love that. Yeah, just last week, I was having a conversation with somebody in my sphere, and just based on her professional industry that she works in, she was really leery about bridging that professional personal divide. Whereas, other people in my sphere don't second guess it at all. It's just like, oh, of course we're going to work with Kristin. Like, that, it's a no-brainer. But for her, it wasn't about me personally. It was just about that she's not used to blending personal and professional circles. And so that was a really interesting conversation to navigate with her. And at the end of the day, I trust her kind of intuition and where she, decides to go with that. But yeah, that's really interesting. I want to kind of dial back, if you can remember when you first got started in real estate. And I know you mentioned, starting out doing rentals, which is so common in like bigger metro areas, less common here in our smaller market. But what are a few things that surprised you when you started like full time as a realtor in the industry? And then what specific maybe mindset shifts really helped you as you grew your business and just grew professionally?
So I think a few of the things that we've kind of already touched on, right? Like putting yourself out there and realizing that people may not always want to use you, and having someone where it's like, let's go back to that first one. I'm like, okay, yeah, The first one was you're in it and you have someone that you love and trust, but they may not want to use you. Sort of my mindset switch there was like figuring out a way to not pressure them, but to kind of give them that information, right? So if I knew someone was like maybe working with another person or looking to sort of transition in that life phase, I would just kind of check in and be like, hey, how are things going? And honestly, sometimes I would just be advising and they weren't even using me, but they were like, oh, like we also want to know what your perspective is. And we're not being helpful in that way because that's always going to come back to you. And at the end of the day, you always want what's best for the person, whether they use you or not. So that's something I learned in the beginning, and it's something that I continue to do. One of the other things was very early on, I had to kind of decide sort of the values and the ethics of what I wanted my brand and my business and real estate to be. We often hear things like, oh, real estate agents are just like car salesmen and they're, we don't have, there's people who don't give us the best reputation. I didn't want that. And I had to figure out a way of like, okay, how do I earn that trust without becoming like this sleazy salesman? And I think my approach to that was like, it's all going to be about education and not pressure. I don't want to pressure anyone into doing anything. And I can be assertive and say, hey, here's my opinion on a certain price, right? Of where we should offer and where we shouldn't, because that's probably something very common we all experience, right? You tell someone, hey, I think you should put in an offer here because that's going to make you a strong candidate. And they might be like, oh, I want to go a little lower, or things like that, right? So figuring out how do you be assertive without applying that pressure to forcing them into making a decision, but also being very transparent and honest. I like to put myself in the shoes of the person who's potentially buying this, right? What are their long-term goals? And if I was in their shoes, would I potentially purchase this or not? We can't necessarily make someone make that decision, but our job is to sort of guide them, and I think that goes back to like having your values and ethics sort of together of like, I'm not gonna chase the money. I'm not gonna lie just to close the deal, and really being very honest with your clients and letting them make that decision for themselves. I don't know. Did that answer the question? I might have gone away from it.
Absolutely. So good. What's like a really hard, if you're open to being vulnerable with us and our listeners, a hard like challenge that you've experienced recently in the current market or personally that you kind of flipped the switch or got yourself out of? We'd love to hear that because I know a lot of people are struggling right now.
Yeah. So I actually had two deals back to back, two listings that were priced a little bit high when we went in. And I had kind of advised my clients of that. They were both in two different sort of suburban locations of Chicago, priced a little bit high. The homes were great, but just their expectations were unrealistic. And I, in hindsight, probably could have done a better job of maybe managing and pushing a little bit harder. And I got into this funk of like imposter syndrome, right? I'm like, okay, these listings have been on the market longer than I would have liked to. Not like 30 days, we're looking at like 2 or 3 months, which in this market is interesting because in Chicago and even in the suburbs, things are still moving pretty quickly. The average time is, about 90 days or so. So when you hit that mark and your listing isn't showing and you're like, wait a minute, I've done the best possible marketing that I could in terms of getting the home staged or getting it ready, getting people in. And it's not like I wasn't getting people in the door. I was getting a lot of people in the door. And yet, nothing was sort of hitting. I had to kind of get myself out of that funk. And I really had to sit down and be very reflective, right? Go back to the numbers, go back to the facts of very comparable properties, but then also, so now I have the facts, right? What's on paper, but then also like, okay, wait, I am a capable person and these things are happening because X, Y, and Z, and kind of readjusting my expectations and then my clients' expectations to ensure that, at the end they got what they wanted. But it was very hard. It was fall, winterish of last year, 2025. And it was kind of like, what's going on? Because I feel like I'm doing something that's right. It's not hitting. And then how do I adjust? And it was one of those things where it's like, I tried not to take it personally. I did for a minute. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? And then you have to step back and you have to be like, okay, like let's take in everything I've learned. Let's talk to some other people who are also in maybe similar situations or in the same area and see what's going on. And that sort of really helped shift that mindset. But I think we can all get into a funk easily because you can have one bad phone call or one bad interaction and you're taken back to, wait a minute, like, am I wrong? Am I right? And you have to really check yourself and you have to do it with honesty because sometimes you could be wrong, right? Like I'm looking at it and I know that I should have pushed harder on that price point because I could have gotten it, if I just trust my guts from the beginning and not let them maybe be as much of the guider, we could have been done. But sometimes it's like, it's hard to, manage all of the different personalities that come in to our day every day.
So true. And I love that you shared that. I had a similar experience where I was really brutally honest with a seller about where I think they should price their home, just given the current market. And they were very thoughtful about it and ultimately came back. And because of my recommendation, they're like, we're just going to hit pause. Like, we're going to continue to try to sell it on our own. Because when they run the numbers, they're like, that number just doesn't work for us. So we're going to try it at this higher amount, which I'm like, good for you. Like I can't make those decisions for you. And so, but I also said, the market is fluid. And so I am constantly watching the market. And so if I see a shift or if I have like a different valuation that I can offer you, I will certainly share that with you. And so that's the thing. It's like, it's not static. Like the market isn't static. These relationships aren't static. And so I love that, there's just things that you reevaluate and maybe think, oh, I'll do that differently next time. Or I'm really glad I stuck to my guns on this one. There's just, we all have those experiences. Given that it's January, it's a new year, I'm curious if you would be willing to share, like, are there some, like commitments or recommitments that you make to yourself or to your business each year to just kind of get started on the right footing? I wonder if you could like just unpack a little bit of that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goal setting is great. When I was first starting out, it was like income driven, right? Of like, okay, I'd like to hit a certain income, and this could justify leaving that corporate job, like you're making the same salary, your lifestyle's not changing, things like that. And I think the income part is still very important. So I do always keep that in the back of my mind as I'm making my goals. But I more so this year for 2026, I did a vision board much earlier than I usually do. I was kind of like, okay, we've been doing this for a few years. And really, if I'm wanting to close an X amount of sales by the end of the year, my Q1 is starting, in October. And so dialing up that momentum for it. So I made a vision board quite early on in like probably October, November, and have been editing and tweaking it. And I think that may continue, the goals may continue to evolve if something is unrealistic, but I am very much pushing towards it and holding myself accountable, like through the CRM and through my calendar of, okay, I said I was going to call 5 people today. And so I'm going to make those calls, because at the end of the day, those calls is what then translates into the appointments, translates into the deals, and then to get you to that final income. So I like to do that. And then in terms of like a reset, we have weekly one-on-ones. We have an operations manager now, which is great. So weekly one-on-ones of someone holding me accountable. But for me personally, something I have started doing for the last 2 weeks now in January is every Sunday, just kind of writing down a short blurb of, okay, here is what went well this week, and here is what did not. And I like to include personal and professional to highlight both, but I have started incorporating a lot of like the daily wins that I've had so that you don't forget them. And then also some of the harder things that really help strengthen and grow you. And just other things, if someone said something to me like that I was talking to in the industry and they were like, oh, I like to do this or I do this and something stuck with me, like write it down, jot it in my notes. and then go back and look at that to say, okay, well, this agent's doing this, and could that potentially benefit me? Or is this a book worth reading? Or, that was something that was interesting to look into. So just constantly following up from all the notes that I've taken is something that I would like to, that I've started doing in 2026.
Sorry, I was like, I'm muted. As we wrap up here, like what is one of your favorite go-to books for motivation or self-help? And maybe you have like a quote or something to share from it that really hit home with you.
That's a really great question. I should read a lot more than I do. I actually just started doing the 75 hard, which is why I've been reading more. And so the book I'm reading right now is The Compound Effect. I forget who it's by, but it's like their 10th year anniversary in it, of
Darren
talking to a friend about
Hardy.
it. Yes.
Yes.
And it's a great book. And I'm only, I don't know, 80 or 90 pages in. I'm almost done, but there's still, quite a bit left. And I think one of the key messages that I've gotten out from it is what you put in is what you will get out, and consistency is key. And it's interesting because those are things that, I've been doing very much in work in real estate. I know consistency is key, putting myself out there on social media, always talking about real estate. And I'm sure you guys get this as well, right? We go somewhere and everyone's like, well, how's the market? Having a pulse on the market is great. But what I've learned is that consistency is key thing translates into other aspects of your life. And whether it's health or fitness or relationships. And so taking that with you. And so the compounding effect, I'm not done with it yet, but I highly recommend everyone reads it. It's great. And really to take some of the things that really will bring value to you, it's those smaller steps that you take right now that are going to get you the bigger results. And that's kind of how habits are formed. And that just reading that, and it's in the back of your head, but then rereading it and reading it over and applying it is what's really great. So I would love to leave people with that.
That is so good. Something else that he preaches that I don't remember if it's in the book, but he used to send daily videos that I got involved with, and I
Oh,
just loved it. But I don't know if he still does it. I want to get to doing that again. But one of the things that he preaches when I was in my consulting job that I was like, oh, this is so true, is as soon as you get distracted by a phone call or an email or a text and you let those little notifications distract you, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes in his research to come back to the task. So really like shutting off those notifications, because us as realtors get so caught up in text and calls and emails and all the notifications, and like this seriously is the devil. Like this cell phone is like seriously the devil. I hate being this connected, but putting do not disturb on when you're trying to do those tasks, those little things like what you said, calling 5 people a day, like you have to put do not disturb and completely focus. Otherwise, a task that's going to take you 30 minutes is all of a sudden going to take 60. So, anyways,
I love
I
that.
love that book.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, for example, for this podcast, my do not disturb is on right now.
Yeah.
Or, when I'm doing family therapy or certain things, I put it on. I think for us, it gets really hard because this phone is literally our lifeline. We are on it 24/7. And sometimes people, I think we're just scrolling or we're doing this. And it's like, oh, what are you doing? And it's like, I'm working because I'm answering a text, or I'm looking at a new listing that came on, or I'm sending an email or scheduling. There's just so much we do, and we live on this, and we communicate with other agents on it. But I think you're right. Like, there is this need for pausing and putting out do not disturb on so we can get through the other things we need to do to make our business grow and be successful. I'm actually going to put do not disturb on for the next time I make calls. Actually, that's a great idea because you're right. I mean, and his research is probably very accurate. Our mind can then, that one sentence can trigger probably so many things. And then we're like thinking with this and this. And I think most of us probably have a little bit of ADHD, just with all of the things that are always coming at us. And so there's 18 different tabs and conversations we're having with all these people. So that probably helps.
Kristin and I joke that they are our emotional support tabs that are up. our
Yeah.
computer.
My
I love
86
that.
tabs, leave them alone.
I will come back to that
No,
later.
but I love the premise of like being in control of your, not just your work and your business, but your like work environment. I think so many agents are prone to living in the chaos and just kind of accepting that as like, well, that's just the nature of the work. No, it's because we allow that. And so not being controlled by our phone notifications, not being controlled by the pings and the dings, and really just taking control of that and saying, no, I'm going to have boundaries around my work. I'm going to be present when I'm engaged in an appointment or XYZ activity. So I love kind of the discipline around those habits.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it interesting that when we're working and another realtor says to us, oh, I don't answer after 9 o'clock, or sorry, I'm at church, it's Sunday, I'm not available till 3 o'clock. We are all kind of like, wait, what? Like, at least here in Chicago, when people hear that, you don't hear it often, but every now and then you'll hear it. And literally, it's conversations that me and my team are having. We're like, oh, this person was like, oh, no, I have this boundary. I don't do this. And some people are very much like, okay, like that's so weird. We should be working all the time. And I'm very much like, okay, like, yeah, sure, it's inconvenient for me, but that's good that they've set that boundary for themselves.
Well, and the big thing too is like, why have to say what you're doing? Just don't be available. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just get
Yeah.
back to them when it's convenient for you. And then it's not, we just have this whole, because of these devilish things, we just have this whole like we have to respond immediately. And yeah, I think it's been really nice recently. In this last year, I've been like, I have an appointment and it might be with my children, but they don't know that, like,
Yeah.
and
And you
that's
do.
okay, or I can talk between this and this time. Yeah, just really setting those boundaries, but not having to like over explain what you're doing too, I think is important.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
good. Well, Nitasha, thank you so much for your time and all your words of wisdom. You're amazing, and we cannot wait to stay connected with you.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to listen to this. And I am so appreciative of you guys reaching out and even wanting to be on your podcast. I really appreciate that. It's such an honor. And I hope that the listeners can take away some good tidbits from it. And I know you guys are in North Carolina. I didn't share this, but I actually have a good friend who moved to North Carolina a couple years ago. They're in Durham. And when they moved, they asked me, they're like, can you get your license here? We would love for you to find us a house. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Like I'm gonna do it. And then it didn't make sense for me to do it. And so eventually they actually just purchased last year, and they called and asked me for some advice, and I gave it to them and helped them where I could. But they had great experts on hand. So if I know of anyone else, I have you two now to refer in my back pocket.
Oh, that's amazing.
Awesome. We would love that. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much. I know our listeners and viewers will take a lot from this conversation. So thanks for your time and your wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Momentum in Real Estate. We hope you found valuable insights and strategies to propel your real estate journey forward.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to deliver content that resonates with you. Remember, success in real estate is about continuous learning, growth, and serving others. Keep that momentum going and watch your business thrive.
Until next time, keep pushing forward and bringing your real estate dreams to life.
This is Cory Wall
and Kristin James signing off from Momentum in Real Estate.